I can never forget his eyes that night. My son's eyes, reflecting terror as the guards tore him from my arms. He was the heir to the throne, but to them, merely a threat, and I, his mother, was powerless. My life, once filled with silks and perfumes, had turned into an endless nightmare where every breath was steeped in fear for his fate and for my own. I had been a queen but became a prisoner in a golden cage where my only hope was to survive, so that one day I might see him again. My name is Nefertari. That is what they called me when I was still a girl, before my destiny became entwined with that of the great Pharaoh. I was born into a noble family in the city of Akhenaten, which my father, the high priest of Amen, called home. From childhood, I was taught grace and wisdom, the art of dance and the weaving of intrigues, an inseparable part of court life. My days passed surrounded by maids, breathing in the scent of lotuses and myrrh, studying hieroglyphs and listening to tales of the great deeds of my ancestors. I knew my life would not belong to me, that I would become merely a pawn in a grand game of power. But I never imagined this game would end in such tragedy. When I turned 15, I was brought to Thebes, the city of gods and pharaohs. My father, seeking to strengthen his position, offered me as a wife to the young pharaoh who had just ascended the throne. I remember that day as if it were yesterday. Golden sandals embroidered with precious stones, silk garments that slid over my skin, and the heavy crown pressing down on my head, as though foretelling the burden I would have to bear. I was beautiful, and when the pharaoh saw me, he smiled. His smile was like the sun, and in that moment, I believed my life would be filled with light. I became his chief wife, the great royal wife. My days were filled with rituals, ceremonies, and endless receptions. I sat beside the pharaoh upon the throne, received ambassadors, and participated in religious rites. My arms were adorned with golden bracelets, my neck with necklaces of turquoise and lapis lazuli. I lived in luxury, surrounded by servants who fulfilled my every wish. But behind all this splendor lay a golden cage. I could not move freely, could not speak my mind, could not even choose my own clothes. My life was scheduled down to the minute, and every step I took was monitored. I was a symbol, not a person. My only joy was in solitude. When I could escape the court's bustle and spend time in my chambers, reading scrolls or watching the stars, I dreamed of freedom, of a simple life, of being merely a woman, not a queen. But these dreams were mere illusions. My fate was sealed and I had to accept it. I had to bear the pharaoh and heir to ensure the continuation of the dynasty. This was my primary duty, and I knew that if I failed, my life would lose all meaning. I prayed to the gods to grant me a son so that I might fulfill my duty and find some semblance of happiness within this golden cage. Years passed, yet I still could not give the pharaoh an heir. My heart tightened with anxiety every time I saw his gaze, filled with hope, then disappointment. The court whispered, the priests offered ever more sacrifices to the gods, but Amen seemed deaf to my pleas. I felt the tension rising as the pharaoh's other wives, younger, more fertile, watched me with unveiled envy, awaiting my downfall. My position as great royal wife grew increasingly precarious. And then, just as hope had nearly abandoned me, the gods showed mercy. I felt new life within me, and joy flooded my heart. The pharaoh was overjoyed. The entire court rejoiced. The priests foretold a great future for my child. And I, Nefertari, once again felt significant. The 9 months of waiting were filled with awe and anticipation. I spent my days in prayer, begging the gods for my child's health, strength, and wisdom. I dreamed of holding him in my arms, teaching him the wisdom of our ancestors, of him becoming a great pharaoh worthy of his father. And then, the day arrived. The birth was long and agonizing, but when I heard my son's first cry, all pain vanished. He was beautiful, with skin the color of ivory and eyes as deep as the Nile. The pharaoh named him Thutmose, after our great ancestors, and proclaimed him his heir. All of Egypt celebrated the prince's birth. Gifts poured in from every corner of the land, priests performed sacred rites, and the people rejoiced. I held my son in my arms and felt love overflowing within me. He was my world, my purpose, my hope. But alongside joy came a shadow, the shadow of envy wrapping itself around me from all sides. The pharaoh's other wives, who had previously whispered behind my back, now looked at me with open hatred. Their glances were venomous, and I could feel their malice seeping into every crack of my existence. I knew my son was not only a gift from the gods, but also a target for those who craved power, who wished to see their own son on the throne. I understood that now I would have to protect him not only from illness and misfortune, but also from treachery and intrigue woven behind the palace walls. My golden cage had become even tighter, its bars sharper. I was ready to fight for my son, for his future, for his life. I was ready to do anything. With each passing day, Thutmose grew stronger, increasingly resembling his father, strong, curious, with eyes blazing with fire. I spent every free moment with him, telling him stories of great pharaohs, teaching him hieroglyphs and the wisdom of our ancestors. My heart rejoiced as I watched him. But anxiety never left me. The whispers behind my back grew louder, the cold stares more overt. I felt the net of intrigue tightening around me, a web of conspiracy enveloping my palace. My main rival was Tia, one of the pharaoh's junior wives, mother of several daughters but no son. Her beauty was fading, but her ambitions were boundless. She was skilled in weaving plots. Her words were sweet as honey, yet poisonous as a scorpion. I knew she longed for my downfall, dreamed of seeing her grandson on the throne, and would stop at nothing to achieve it. She surrounded me with her spies. Her servants eavesdropped on every word I spoke. Her priests whispered lies into the pharaoh's ear about my lack of piety. The pharaoh, occupied with state affairs and military campaigns, either failed to notice or chose not to see what was happening. He trusted me, but his attention was scattered. His heart preoccupied with other matters. I tried to convey my fears to him, but he merely waved them away, calling my concerns mere womanly whims. I felt alone and defenseless, surrounded by enemies waiting only for the right moment to strike. My maids, whom I had trusted, turned out to be traitors, my friends indifferent. I was left alone with only my son. Against the entire court, I began taking precautions. I ceased trusting anyone but myself. I inspected every morsel of food and every drink served to Thutmose. I hired new guards loyal to me personally and ordered them never to let my son out of their sight. I studied ancient scrolls, searching for answers, for ways to protect my child. I became strong, stern, suspicious. My heart, once full of love and tenderness, was now armored to shield my son. I understood that my life was a constant battle, and I was ready for it. I was ready to fight for my son, for his future, for his life. I was ready to do anything to protect him from those who wished to destroy him. Tension mounted day by day. I felt the air around me grow thick, foreboding a storm. One night, when the moon hung over the Nile like a silver disk, it happened. I awoke to a strange noise. My loyal guards, carefully chosen by me, lay dead at the door of my chambers. My heart clenched in terror. I grabbed Thutmose, who had been sleeping beside me, and clutched him to my chest. His small body trembled with fear, but he made no sound. He was truly a son of the pharaoh. Even in that moment, the doors burst open, and men in black robes, their faces hidden beneath hoods, stormed in. I knew who had sent them. It was Tia. Her envy and thirst for power had finally erupted. They had come for Thutmose to kill him, to clear the path to the throne for her puppet. I could not let that happen. I was a mother, and I was ready to die to protect my son. I fought desperately, trying to fend off the attackers. My hands, once accustomed to silks and jewels, now gripped the dagger I always kept beneath my pillow. I wounded one of them, but there were too many. They tore Thutmose from my arms, and I heard his cry, a sound that still echoes in my ears. I saw his eyes filled with terror as they carried him away. In that moment, I realized I had lost. My son was in their hands, and I could do nothing, but I did not surrender. I knew I had to survive to find him, to save him. I seized the moment of confusion after they took Thutmose and rushed to a secret passage known only to me. It led beyond the palace to the banks of the Nile. I ran blindly, my feet slipping on the stones, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. I heard shouts of pursuit behind me, but I did not stop. I had to survive. I had to find my son. I had to avenge this betrayal. I had been a queen, but now I was simply a mother who had lost her child and was ready to do anything to get him back. I escaped the palace, but where could I go? My world had collapsed. I, the great royal wife, was now a fugitive without title, without servants, without protection. My luxurious garments were torn, my jewels lost. I was merely a woman who had lost her child. I wandered the streets of Thebes, hiding in shadows, avoiding human eyes. I feared being recognized, captured, and returned to the palace where certain death awaited me. I survived on whatever I could find, slept under the open sky, and every day was a struggle for survival. My thoughts were only of Thutmose. Was he alive? What had they done to him? I pictured his small face, his laughter, his questions. I swore to myself that I would find him no matter the cost. I began gathering information, listening to conversations in markets, taverns, and temples. I learned that the pharaoh had declared me dead, and Thutmose kidnapped. Tia, of course, had seized the opportunity to strengthen her position. She spread rumors of my madness, claiming I had tried to kill my son and that the gods had punished me. I realized I could not act openly. I needed help, but who could I trust? My former friends and allies had turned their backs on me, fearing Tia's wrath. I was alone, but I did not despair. I knew there were people in Egypt still loyal to the pharaoh, those who remembered me and Thutmose. I began searching for them, cautiously, step by step, trying to find even a single thread that might lead. Me too, my son. I found refuge in a small village of artisans where no one knew me. I worked as a common woman, weaving baskets, preparing food to earn my bread. My hands, once accustomed to luxury, were now calloused, but I did not complain. Each callus was a reminder of my purpose, of my son. I learned to live anew without luxury or privilege, but with hope in my heart. I knew my path would be long and dangerous, but I was prepared to walk it to the end. I was ready to do anything, to reclaim my son, to avenge the betrayal, to restore justice. I was Nefertari, and I would not surrender. Years passed. My face grew lined, my hands roughened by labor, but the fire in my eyes did not fade. I found those loyal to the pharaoh, those who remembered Thutmose. We met in secret, planned, waited for our moment. I learned that Thutmose was alive, held in a remote temple under the strict watch of priests loyal to Tia. He had grown up unaware of his true origins, taught that he was the son of a priest, not the heir to the throne. My heart broke with sorrow, but I knew I had to be strong. Finally, the day came when we were ready to act. The pharaoh, weakened by age and intrigue, lay dying. Tia prepared to declare her grandson the heir. Under cover of night, we infiltrated the palace, using old, forgotten passages. My people fought bravely, and I, Nefertari, led them into battle. I was no longer the fragile queen who once lived in a golden cage. I was a warrior, a mother come to reclaim her son. We reached the pharaoh's chambers. He lay on his bed, his breath shallow. Beside him stood Tia, her eyes blazing with triumph. I appeared before her, and her face twisted in horror. She had not expected to see me alive. I told the pharaoh the truth of her betrayal, of Thutmose's abduction. He listened, his once vibrant eyes now filled with tears. He recognized me, his Nefertari, and his final breath was the name of our son. Tia was captured and executed. Her followers were banished. I journeyed to the temple to retrieve my son. He had grown into a tall, strong young man. But when I called his name, when I told him I was his mother, he looked at me with disbelief, with distance. He did not remember me. The years of separation, the years of lies, had taken their toll. He was the pharaoh's son, but not mine. He was the heir to the throne, but not the child I had held in my arms. I restored his throne, his name, but not his love. I became regent for the young pharaoh, helping him rule Egypt. I restored justice, punished the guilty, but my heart was broken. I had saved my son, but I had lost him. I was a queen, yet remained a mother who could not reclaim her child. My victory was bitter, and my confession, a tale of love, betrayal, and the eternal pain of a mother's heart. I can never forget his eyes that night when he was torn from my arms, and I can never forget his eyes when he looked at me as a stranger. This is my confession, and this is my eternal sorrow.